Hey everybody! Welcome to ABA Inside Track's February 2023 preview episode. I'm your host, Robert Perry Cruz, and with me as always is one of my co-hosts.
Hello, Rob. It's me, Diana.
Now, unfortunately, for those of you who live in colder areas, you might know the joy of a snow day, which is where we are recording this. But unfortunately, that does mean our third co-host, Jackie McDonald, is a bit snowed in at the moment, and due to a lot of other reasons, we said we'll just do it with the two of us this month. So this is our monthly podcast where we talk about what's coming out on ABA Inside Track, our podcast about behavior analysis and behavior analytic research. We're going to discuss the topics coming up, some other things kind of going on in the ABA Inside Track world, and then we had an email that we thought would be fun to share out with everybody. So without further ado, why don't we get into what's coming out this month on the podcast?
Alrighty, so we're talking about February. And for February, we have 3 episodes planned. The first of them is on the topic of precision teaching.
Ooh.
I know. I know. So that's pretty exciting. We are going to review 4 different articles on this topic. The first is titled, The Implementation of Precision Teaching for the Improvement of Academic Skills, a Systematic Review of the Literature Over 30 Years by McTiernan, McCoy, Mendonca, Leiden, and Diffley, and that was published in Behavioral Interventions 2022. We will also discuss implementation of frequency building and precision teaching to teach sight words via synchronous learning, a case study. That was by Dietrich and Lee and published in Behavior Analysis and Practice 2022. Very recent research on this topic. After that, the precision teaching system, a synthesized definition, concept analysis, and process by Evans, Bula, and Kita, published in Behavior Analysis and Practice 2021. And finally, using self-management and social media to increase steps in sedentary college students by Junaid, Bula, Benjamin, Wind, and Nazaruk. That was also in Behavior Analysis and Practice, also 2021. So that was topic number 1. After that, we were very fortunate to get to interview Dr. Johanna Staubitz and review her research that she's done on utilizing a few different technologies actually to work with emotional and behavioral disorder students. And we had 3 articles from her that we reviewed. The first was Effects of Self-Control Training for Elementary Students with Emotional and Behavioral Disorders by Staubitz, Lloyd, and Reed, published in Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis 2020. Also, Minimizing Escalation by Treating Dangerous Problem Behavior with an Enhanced Choice Model by Rajaraman, Hanley, Gover, Staubitz, Simcoe, and Matras. And that was in Behavior Analysis and Practice 2020 or 2021. I think it's 21.
21.
And finally, Effects of an Enhanced Choice Model of Skill-Based Treatment for Students with Emotional Behavior Disorders by Staubitz, Pollock, Hawes, and Hopton. That was published in the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis 2022. Hot off the presses. So hot it doesn't even have a issue number.
It did come out in the most recent Java. So, but the copy we have is we have the pre-published, the online version.
All right, and then our last planned topic for February is on Perseveration, and this was actually a listener request. I don't think we've ever directly discussed this topic before, so we're going to review some of the literature on it. The first article we will talk about is Functional Analysis in Non-Contingent Reinforcement with Extinction in the Treatment of Perseverative Speech. That was by Megan Gondenu-Hoare and Valdez Michael, published in Behavior Analysis and Practice 2021. Then we'll take it way back and talk about functional analysis and treatment of verbal perseverations displayed by an adult with autism by Rayfelt and Chambers. That was published in JABA 2003, as they say. Then we will talk about functional assessment and treatment of perseverative speech about restricted topics in an adolescent with Asperger's syndrome by Fisher, Rodriguez, and Owen, and that was published in JABA 2013. And finally, functional analysis and intervention of perseverative speech in students with high-functioning autism and related neurodevelopmental disabilities by Kuntz, Santos, and Kennedy, and that was published in JABA 2020.
Ooh, I'm really excited about talking about perseveration. I think it's one of those topics that sort of gets lumped in with stereotypic behavior, even though the functions are likely different, the contexts are likely different. So I think it would be sort of good to branch out on a similar yet different topic.
I mean, I think that it'll be interesting to sort of see how the literature has expanded and potentially changed some of its perspectives and viewpoints over the years. So that will definitely be part of our conversation.
Mm-hmm. Which we sort of already had while we were picking articles. It was fun. So much fun. It's like a podcast about ABA all the time around here in the Perry Cruz household. So we have a couple other pieces of episode-related content coming out this month as well. For our patrons, we will be doing a recording for an episode that will be coming out in March, but the recording will be our live winter episode. And by live, it'll be over Zoom, but it will be a chance, for patrons at the $5 and up level to get a chance to see what does it look like when we actually record these episodes, which we find to be fun, with little less editing. We're usually pretty on point, but it's kind of a fun way to sort of see what the recording looks like, some fun aside, some of the pre-show banter, all that good stuff. And it's an episode that was chosen by our Patreon subscribers, and there was a choice all around the themes of ethics. And the winner was a further discussion of ethics or lack of ethics in conversion therapy. Now, many of you might remember that we had done an episode sort of looking at the kind of call to action on Reckers and Lovaas. We've done that with Sarah Compound, Dr. Matthew Capriati, and our friend and colleague, Alan Haberman. We've done that back in October. But one of the
Not very long ago.
But one of the recommendations in that paper had been to further discuss some of the other articles that had not had statements of concern made about them that were also published in JABA that also covered much of the same ground in terms of the use of conversion therapy. So we thought, let's put that as an option. That was the one our Patreon subscribers voted on. So we'll be continuing that discussion, pointing out where less than ethical behavior was used in research to promote conversion therapy, as well as talking a little bit more about some of the articles that Sarah and Matt had cited in their own article, discussing that conversion therapy is not something that everyone agreed on and then suddenly didn't. It was something that was considered to be unethical even at the time. So we'll actually be reviewing some of those articles that pointed out the lack of ethics in that research way back in the 70s. So again, hopefully continuing to point out some mistakes that behavior analysis has made in the past and continuing to talk about how we as a field can do better. So that will be recorded in February and will be available for patrons to either watch the video of after or to come see live, and will be out on the free feed in March. So that's one thing coming out. We also are going to be getting ready for our spring book club. In about a week, about the time this comes out on the free feed, so like early February, we're going to have a poll up for the book that we'll be doing later on in April. We usually try to give ourselves a little bit of a buffer time because we all have a lot of other things that we're working on, and reading a book can take a lot longer than reading, 4 to 5 articles for preparing for an episode. So the topic actually came from another project that, some of us here are working on, and an article that I believe we discussed by Gina Green about behavior analysts looking at ways to inform themselves and make critical thoughts about different treatments. And there was just a great list of references in books, some of which we talked about maybe doing as a book club, some of which we hadn't talked about before, some of which spurred us to think of other books that we kind of wanted to do that could be lumped into this idea of teaching skeptical thinking, teaching critical thinking, teaching evaluative thinking, which is something that many of us probably do on a daily basis, but isn't necessarily a skill that we learned in grad school. Maybe we came to later. Maybe we had a mentor or supervisor help us with that. So that's kind of the general topic. So we're going to have a poll up. We're finalizing the list of books, but that poll will be up around February 6th, I believe, is the date we're going to have that out. So again, this is for anyone who is subscribed on our Patreon page, patreon.com/ABA Inside Track, can choose which of the books from your book club friends you would like us to read and then discuss. But they'll all be around that theme of skeptical, critical thinking. We're kind of excited. Some of the books I think are very directly related to behavior analysis. Some are a bit adjacent, but I think we're all excited about the topic. It's a little different than some of the ones we've done before. So those are the things coming out from us in some way or another over February. Also, we were very excited to be guests on a different podcast. Adam Dean over in the UK had started a podcast more for teachers in special education, but it certainly could be of interest of behavior analysts who are also teachers. He's a BCBA and a special educator, and has a podcast called Classroom Behavior Solutions. And be careful if you're in America. There is a U in that behavior. So, you want to make sure you're looking for the right one. But it was very nice to have us on. I believe he's had our friend Matt Scoria from Behavioral Observations on as well, talking about some tips for teachers in the classroom and sort of some of the more punitive treatments or punitive classroom management systems that are often used in schools, also in the UK. So we had a chance to sort of chat about that, and that was a lot of fun. So again, you can take a look for that podcast and support Adam and his new endeavor as well. I think that's almost all of our things. So let's move into errata, the last section of the show where we share sort of some emails or content from listeners. We had a really cool email from Jamie, who wrote in talking again about the idea of being a BCBA in the public school system. Now, she mentioned she's a newly licensed BCBA and has recently been hired by a firm contracting with the school district in California. So working way out on the West Coast, and had some questions regarding, kind of that discussion of working in a school system. And the school system is being very welcoming to her as a BCBA, but again, how to take some of the routines and systems that can exist in behavior analysis and make sure that they're brought over to special education in a way that doesn't ruffle any feathers, that works for everybody, but still sort of allows her to do her job as a BCBA within the context of a school system. Certainly, there's always a concern that you want to make sure you're providing your behavioral services in a way that follows the ethics code, but also in a way that makes the people who are using your services value those services. And that's always very hard, I think, especially for newer BCBAs when they're moving into different environments, to kind of make sure that they're not ruffling any feathers, but are also making everybody happy, but are also following best practices in regards to the science of behavior. And so I was very, very happy to get that email. Thank you, Jamie. And it had some kind of suggestions. So this could be general suggestions, I think, for folks working in school systems. But again, schools can be a really great place, but again, are very overwhelming when you're working in a brand new system, especially if you haven't had a lot of experience working in schools before, because there's a lot of systems that you may not be aware of and you wouldn't have learned in your behavior analytic graduate program. So certainly I pointed to a couple episodes we've done on the subject. We did one with consulting. We did one on FBAs in schools that I think could be helpful. Those are episodes 124 and 208. Also, how to talk to non-behavior analysts without really trying, episode 26, which is an oldie, but I still think a goodie. Talking about how to use your behavior analytic language in ways that don't make people frustrated. Also, certainly there's some of the ABAI SIGs in terms of practice might be good locations for kind of newer professionals or for professionals who just want to continue learning about how to best implement ABA practices in different settings. And another general statement I made was making sure that in any consulting relationship, you want to have a sense of what are the goals of that consulting relationship. What is everyone hoping will be done? So at the end of the relationship, they say, that was a great relationship. I'm so glad we brought a BCBA in to help us with that. Making sure to also speak to the stakeholders involved, because it's not just going to be the people necessarily who pay you if you say work for a consulting firm. And then asking, are these goals within the realm of competency? So for schools, for example, if the issue is more about curriculum, that may or may not be something that you know how to do. It may be about accessing curriculum or problem behavior interfering with the implementation of curriculum. So you really want to know the ins and outs there, because some of those might be ins and outs that you need additional mentorship or support with. Once you know that, you can better propose services. And this is really an ongoing process. And I think that's something I learned when I was becoming a consultant, is that it's not, I heard your problem, I can solve it in 5 seconds. It really is a back and forth discussing, this is what I'm hearing, this is what I think you might need, what do you think of what I'm suggesting? Maybe you don't like some of those sections, so let me revise what I'm suggesting. But it really is kind of a back and forth, keeping in mind other pieces like, do you have timelines related to the work that you've been asked to do? Once you have that, you can develop your calendar of how services will be presented, you can follow through, and you want to keep checking in with your stakeholders. is this what we're looking for? And if you're doing this as a non-employee of that school system, make sure that the people that are paying you also know what you're doing, because they might have some say about how much time they have, how much billing is required. Again, a lot of moving parts, but a lot of it's just that back and forth communication to make sure everyone is comfortable with what you're proposing, everybody's on board with what you're proposing, and you're giving yourself enough time to do a good job with what you have proposed. But again, that constant getting feedback process, I think we talked about it on one of our live episodes. Sometimes the best part about feedback is just letting people know you want that feedback and then asking for it frequently. That'll help you do a good job, and also has been, research wise, and like some of the business literature shown, makes you look much more competent in your job. Whether or not you're using that feedback or not, I don't know, but it definitely makes you look like you know what you're doing, which is always a good feeling to have as any professional. So again, it's a lot of doing the job for your clients, your students, but also making sure that the stakeholders know what's going on and they have a say, because they're the ones who are paying for the service. They're the ones who have to implement the services once you're gone. And also, it's a good idea to know what are the regulations in your state. So California is a big state, and its laws are somewhat different in some ways than, say, in Massachusetts or New York or Indiana. So you sort of want to know what the expectations are within your state around how are services distributed, how do services end, are there any changes in definition between the state level and the federal level. So again, if it's not something you know, you can go to websites like your state Department of Education website or even federal IDEA websites. All right, but thank you so much for reaching out, Jamie. And so I hope that that was just some of the information that Jamie that I had shared with Jamie, and Jamie shared some back. And I actually found a book that she was really looking forward to reading, so I thought I'd share that in case anyone had read it before. I had not. It's Ennio Cipani, who's the writer I had definitely heard of, but Functional Behavioral Assessment, Diagnosis, and Treatment: A Complete System for Education in Mental Health Settings. So not a book that I had read. I think I've been aware of it or I've heard about it before, but did not have in my own library. So recommendation for folks out there if they're interested in learning more from Jamie. So thanks for writing in. If you're interested in writing into us, we always appreciate emails. You can do that at abainsidetrack@gmail.com. Well, that brings us to the end of our preview. It's a little brief because we have a lot of folks, even though it's a snow day, we've still got a lot of moving parts in the household. So we need to move along, but we are very excited for what's coming out in February. We hope you are too. Also, as we record this, it is Diana's birthday. So as you get this episode, please wish her a belated happy birthday on social media or wherever, if you haven't already. She likes to tease me about changes in birthdays, so I thought I'd return the favor this time. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. We've got all those great episodes coming out this February. And again, if you want to vote on our book club and see the live episode being recorded or get a video, did I mention you get one Ethics CE for free for subscribing and watching and listening? Just saying. You can wait till March if you want, but maybe you want to get a little extra time with that episode. You can go to patreon.com/ABA to subscribe. We really appreciate it. Well, we'll be back with the first of those great February episodes next week. But until then, keep responding. Bye.